Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. So I had this conversation with a client recently around the volume at which they were putting personal expenses through their business. And the important point to be made here is that I'm not going to spend this episode telling you not to commingle your personal and business. By the way, you should not really commingle your personal and business, but if you do, congrats, you're normal. And it's okay. People make mistakes and commingle things all the time. But I wanted to share this episode with you as my take on the very reality of this. Like, this is going to happen, so you might as well know how to handle it, okay? So if you are putting your personal expenses through your business, here's a couple of key points I really want to make with you to understand the impact it has, but also to know how to do it in a better way. Okay. So if you're going to be putting personal expenses through the business, number one is I don't like putting recurring personal expenses through the business. Okay. So for example, if you're putting through, like personal loan payments, if you're putting through education costs, if you're putting through personal subscriptions, right, your Netflix or whatever, unless it's a business expense, right? But if it's all straight personal, like these personal expenses have nothing to do with your actual business and they could never be construed as a business expense or even mixed use, then you want to be careful with the recurring because in the event you get audited, right? If you put one expense through, like you went to the grocery store, you did something on Amazon, you Venmoed somebody, and you put it through the business one time, there could be an argument made that once in a while this is due to business reasons, or once in a while you mix in some business stuff and you call it even whatever. Like once in a while you put something through, I'm generally not going to police every single little dollar close to the decimal point that goes through. But if you're putting, say, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars per month in recurring charges, then that is definitely something that will get looked at. Because if you're making one oopsie once in a great while and it trickles in there, oops, sorry, I used the wrong card, versus you intentionally are swiping that card every single month, the business card for a personal expense, you look more culpable than if you were to make one oopsie at a time sparingly. So if you're making 12 oopsies a year on every subscription, it looks more intentional. It looks like you're designing this to try to get the most out of the tax deduction and that you are trying to evade taxes. So my best bet for this is you want to, if you are going to sometimes use the business card for personal reasons, I would not do it for recurring charges just to kick that habit right out the gate. And by the way, if you need more money, to spend on these personal expenses and you know that the business is where the money is, then what you want to do is increase your distributions or increase your salary out of your business, depending on what type of structure you have in your business, increase the cash flow that you're generating personally. So if you're taking distributions out to fund your personal life, then increase those distributions so that you can more than cover those personal expenses. But if you're running a salary, same thing. You could increase your salary. Now, you want to talk to your tax advisor about this because there's some strategy to that, but you want to make sure that you have enough cash flow coming in to cover those personal expenses. And if you're telling me, hey, Shannon, I really don't have the cash flow coming in to cover those personal expenses, I don't feel like my business is healthy enough to increase my salary or increase my distributions, well, then maybe we need to look at your personal spending. Because if the machine that is supposed to be generating the cash flow for you personally is generating that just enough and you're spending faster than it can generate, then we need to look at the relationship there. We need to look at how fast you're spending, how much you're spending, what you're spending on, and if it's truly worth the while. Because we get caught up in this mindset that if we're swiping the business card, oh, it's a business expense, like it just gets buried. And I feel like you also tend to not look at it in the face. It gets buried in the books, the bookkeeper handles it, and you don't really have to feel the sting of that expense in your personal life. So this is the other reason why I don't like commingling them. It's not just for clean bookkeeping, and it's not just because it's the way you're supposed to do it. Hey, real quick, are you learning anything in this episode that you think is share worthy? Well, if you could take a quick screenshot and share any of your biggest takeaways or quotes from this episode, post it to Instagram and make sure to tag me at Shannon K. Weinstein and at Keep What You Earn. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Let's dive back in. Fundamentally, I've noticed a mindset difference between the business owners who do this and those that don't, because they have a heightened awareness of the money they actually have in their bank account. They have a heightened awareness of their personal cash flow, and they have an ability to sense, in a way, how much is in the bank account and how much they have left to spend. And they pay attention to that. They have two eyes on it all the time and saying, hey, this is how much I have in the bank account. This is all the expenses that are coming up. Here are the bills that I have coming due, et cetera. And they tend to know more about their personal financial situation, which we all want more of. We want that awareness. So when you are mixing those things, it can then create confusion on how much you actually spending at home, how much you actually spending to fund your lifestyle. And the truth may surprise you. So that's another thing. And when we handle this with customers, with our clients, we can't also track every dollar, by the way. We don't go so close to the decimal point where every $10, $20, $50 charge is, getting allocated to distributions, which is, by the way, this is what your accountant's doing. They're moving it to a draw account. Whenever you pay for something personally in your business, your accountant should be, if they know that this is personal, they're moving it to something on the balance sheet. They're taking it off your profit and loss. You're not getting the tax deduction. So just because you're putting it on the business card doesn't mean you're going to get the tax deduction, because your bookkeeper may intervene and realize it's personal and put it out with personal expenses and exclude it from your P&L. So there's another thing there where if you are using the business card a lot, then what's likely happening is your bookkeeper is noticing this and they're moving it to distributions anyway. So you're really not getting any tax benefit. And on top of that, here's something to clue you in on. Many bookkeepers charge you based on volume of transactions. So if you're swiping the business card on personal expenses dozens of times a month, chances are that's also racking you up a higher bookkeeping bill. So not only are you not benefiting from the tax deduction, but now you're paying extra for the bookkeeper to handle those transactions and move them to the right folder and getting receipts and all that other stuff and having them look up things. So even if they're not charging per transaction, they could be charging per hour as well. So could your CPA, your accountant, and this could create extra work for them. So all in all, it actually doesn't benefit you to do this a lot. But if you're going to be putting personal expenses through the business, and you're going to be taking aggressive tax positions, maybe this is a mixed use business expense, or there's a really solid argument as to why this particular type of expense is relevant to your business and you want to make that case and you want to defend it. I recommend for my clients, when they want to take an aggressive tax position and we agree that it's something that they theoretically could defend and that there isn't any precedent against them, right? We look at everything and say, okay, we're going to take this position. If we do that, okay, we pick our battles. We don't tend to take aggressive positions elsewhere, definitely not in high volume and definitely not in high magnitude. So if, for example, we bring in a vehicle under the business's name that is predominantly business use, we treat it all properly through the system, through the bookkeeping, and we know that somebody could question, and I know that my client maybe doesn't maintain a mileage log, right, which you're supposed to do if you have a business vehicle. But if you don't maintain a mileage log, and then you get audited, they're going to call that into question. And we know that we're at risk because we don't have solid documentation there. We know that we're taking an aggressive, quote unquote, position because we don't have a ton of proof. So if we're doing that, what I would do is not take aggressive positions in other spots on the return. I would basically say, okay, that's the area where we can afford to, play in the gray, so to speak. And if we ever get audited, we may not be able to keep those deductions because we can't really prove what's going on in real life. And we have to be okay with that. And if we can't, if we say, you know what, it's not worth the risk, or you know what, I want to choose this aggressive position instead, that's a conscious choice we have to make. And I'm telling you that we make these choices sparingly and we make them intentionally, because I think a lot of people are making really aggressive tax positions over and over and over again, to the point where if you do that, then the auditor or anybody else who works with you is going to lose trust with you, because they're going to see that you're taking all these aggressive stances and that you're trying to get what you can. So my advice is always to pick your battles when it comes to this, and to make sure that if you are going to be using your business card for things other than core business activities, that you are fully aware of how that's going to be defended, how it's going to be treated, and just exactly how you could link this to your business so that you can maximize the tax deductions that you need to. So when it comes to tax strategy, my philosophy is that I would rather you master your tax plan than implement some crazy strategies you're learning off of TikTok and Instagram. And that's why we use power sessions to dedicate some time with you to create a pro forma tax return. This enables you to predict your tax outcome, to take the surprise out of that surprise tax bill, and to enable you to use your resources better instead of overpaying Uncle Sam. If you're interested in learning more, check the link in the show notes to learn more about our power sessions.